Preston with Power Over Parkinson's. We're here with Teresa Jackson, who's going to be our pop profile, as well as her husband, Stan Jackson. Teresa is a nationally board certified health and wellness coach. She was trained at Duke Medicine, and she's also a person with Parkinson's. So we're going to run through some questions with Teresa, and Stan is going to interject and offer his take on everything as a care partner and share their story. So Teresa and Stan, thank you so much for being with us.
Yeah, it's our pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you. So tell us a little bit about when you were diagnosed with Parkinson's disease.
So I was initially diagnosed in February of 2019, and my process and my journey started in 2018 when my daughter, who was living abroad in Belfast, Northern Ireland, we would FaceTime, and she noticed that the phone was shaking, and she would say something to me, and I didn't really recognize the symptom at the time. I was about 53, I think at the time. And so fast forward to like August, and I went to the doctor and didn't have any symptoms that day. It's kind of like taking your car into the shop and nothing happening when you're trying to get a diagnosis. And so she said I wouldn't worry about it. But by November, I was beginning to have some significant, obvious symptoms that were impacting my life. So I went to the doctor again, and through some testing, she decided I needed to see a neurologist.
Okay.
And she ordered an MRI, and it was normal. And so our daughter was getting married in December, and so I put it off until February. In February, I was diagnosed, but the diagnosis came as such a shock, and there was no education on the diagnosis itself or how to take care of yourself. And so that's actually how I came to develop an initiative called Parkinson's Pal, which I'll be happy to explain later. But I actually didn't accept that diagnosis. I waited about another month and got a second opinion because I just could not believe that I had Parkinson's. I was 55, I guess, by the time this all rolled around, and fit and healthy and active, and just could not understand how this was happening to me. So I was confirmed in March of 2019.
Right. So it sounds like your story was similar in that your path was you start with your general practitioner, and then you were led to a neurologist. And
Correct.
I know a lot of folks do get that second opinion because it's a hard pill to swallow, of course. So I think a lot of folks need to just kind of have that moment, and the second opinions are always great. Tell me a little bit about how your diagnosis affected your career. So were you working at the time? Are you still working? Are you retired? So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I was actually working in a position where I was purchasing physician practices for a hospital, and high profile, high stress job. And I liked it, but it was stressful. And so my husband and I actually just made the decision that I would resign from that position and try to figure out what this meant to my health and to our family. So I did leave the corporate world at that point for a few months. I went back to school to Duke, as you mentioned, and obtained my certification in health and wellness coaching. And so I opened up my own business shortly after that. And so I help people make sustainable lifestyle changes. So I am working, but I have control over how many hours I work, who I work with, that sort of thing.
Stan, tell us how Teresa's diagnosis affected you, and how the dynamic may have changed as far as having her home, and almost a career change as a result of her diagnosis.
Yeah, it was definitely a career change. Just not a career change, but a lifestyle change.
Yeah.
Going from, somebody that was working all the time and working lots of hours to, complete standstill as far as work goes. She seems to be busier now more than she was when she was working, seems to be. But it was a definite change. But, being a care partner, you have to adjust and help, your partner, get through this diagnosis.
Right. Very good. So, Teresa, Parkinson's disease is fairly nebulous in that we found that no two Parkinsons are alike, right? So, tell us how you describe what it means to have Parkinson's disease to others.
Well, that's a really good question. I think when people ask me, really the first question I always get was, how did you know? And I think people worry, like, could I have this? And so, it started out with tremors, and I describe it as having a neurological diagnosis that's non-curable, but you can live well with it. And I think that's the message, Margaret, that I certainly want people to hear very clearly and very loudly, is that there are things that you can do that impact your life in a very positive way. And you can live well with Parkinson's, but you have to be intentional about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really the message that I want to make sure people hear.
Right. I love that. Helping people understand, excuse me, that they are in control. This isn't something that's outside their control. They control how each day looks.
Right. And also, I think because of the lack of education that seems to happen for most people upon diagnosis, some people don't even know, and I was in that category, is this a death sentence?
Right.
Will I succumb to pneumonia and swallowing challenges and just get sick enough that I'll pass quickly?
Right.
And it's not a death sentence.
Right.
And it is so important that people understand, especially about exercise and how to control or at least partner in their disease. Right. And part of that really, in addition to exercise and nutrition, the other part of that I think is really important is making sure that you are seeing a movement disorder specialist.
I couldn't agree more. And the folks listening certainly know Power Over Parkinson's. The majority of its mission is to get folks out, active, moving, the importance of exercise. And what accompanies that is the socialization, getting people out, talking, and being among people and knowing I can control this. It's not a death sentence, and I can control how each day is going to look. So I love that. You stated that. Now it's pretty clear the answer to this next question as far as who is your support person. We've got Stan here, who's clearly your care partner and support person, but can you expand maybe children, friends, health professionals? Tell us a little bit about your support team with Stan at the hub.
Yeah, Stan's definitely at the hub, and our children, sorry.
It's all right. It's all right.
And thank you for allowing me to be vulnerable. Our children have been very supportive, and I'm so blessed, so blessed, because we have so many people that have rallied around us, from my siblings to my parents to his family. And my team is really made up of our family, and then I have a great movement disorder specialist. I have a great primary care doctor. I see a dermatologist. People that have Parkinson's need to know that they are at an elevated risk, for not a significant elevated risk, but certainly an elevated risk for melanoma, and they need to be seeing their dermatologist once a year.
Yeah.
I have a physical therapist that I see that designed a program for me for my specific challenges. You need to see an ophthalmologist, and if you can see a neuro-ophthalmologist, all the better.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people that come upon your team that make living with Parkinson's a little easier, and it really is a team effort.
Now, how, if I can have you expand a little bit about this, and it might help some of our listeners, how have you found some of these professionals? So we know that people with Parkinson's do maybe have a hard time with their eyes as far as following the reading and the lines and kind of just overall eye tracking. So in different areas that Parkinson's has affected you and you needed a specialist, can you tell us how you've gone about in finding and securing a great specialist?
I really relied on my primary care
Mm-hmm.
and my movement disorder specialist.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to that, I attended a class called Parkinson's Self-Efficacy class that's held there in Richmond. And there's a ton of education, and you are exposed to different people. And so you network within that group and within other groups that you know in the medical field to make sure that you are reaching out to people that and being seen by people
Mm-hmm.
that are certainly educated and experienced in that area, but also you want to partner with people that understand who you are and that you have a good relationship with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's one thing that we found, that through the class,
Mm-hmm.
but you know, don't be afraid to get a second opinion, or if somebody's not working with you, say the doctor or whatever is not working with you, not giving you the education you need, to go out and seek another doctor.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a great point, following your intuition, because how you feel and how you walk out of that appointment is important in terms of your relationship with your doctor, and the successful that will follow in terms of
Definitely.
what they're
And it's a
offering.
long-term, yeah, it's a long-term relationship. It's not I have a cold and I'm going to run in and see this person at urgent care. This is a long-term relationship. And when they know you and they can see differences, even subtle differences that you may not have noticed,
Mm-hmm.
I think it just lends itself to better care.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Now, Stan, if it's okay that I ask, do you accompany some of the appointments with Teresa?
Yeah, I go to all of them.
Very good. Very good. Wonderful care partner.
Because I have to know what's going on.
Yep.
That care partner has to know what's going on.
Yeah.
So they can help their partner, wade through this thing called Parkinson's.
Yeah. I think that's great. It's a lot of information. And if you have the support of a care partner to help you kind of weed through it and understand what works for you and what doesn't, I think is so important and valuable. Teresa, if I can move on to the next question, tell us how you stay cognitively focused and challenged. That's such an important part that sometimes is overlooked with Parkinson's disease. We think of it as a movement disorder, and our arms and legs might not be working the way we want to, but sometimes it's our memory and things like that. So tell us how you stay challenged cognitively and focused in that domain.
Well, shortly after I was diagnosed, I decided to go back to school. And that was, when you go to school like Duke, it's a challenging school.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so staying plugged in, I'm taking a class from Yale right now, and staying plugged in to the academic side. I'm a lifelong learner, and so I think that's positive.
Mm-hmm.
But for that might not be everyone's thing. I also do crossword puzzles. I have some apps on my phone that there's some puzzles that you put together. It's just always making your mind continue to learn.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really important for people to learn something new. I'm going to learn how to play the saxophone.
Yeah.
I don't think, it has to be something like that. It could be anything really.
Yeah.
And then my husband and I play games such as Battleship.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And just other games that make your brain think.
Yeah.
So anything that I can do throughout the day, whether it's reading. And then the other part I think people forget is that your cognitive ability is very much impacted by exercise.
Mm-hmm.
And so exercise, it helps your symptoms, it helps your medication work better, it helps your GI system work better, it helps you sleep better, it helps your cognitive. So I can't say enough, get up,
Mm-hmm.
get up, get up, get up. Get up out of your chair and move. And it looks different for everyone.
Yep.
My husband and I walk 6 miles several days a week, 6 miles at a time, several days a week, and in addition to other types of exercise. And maybe that's not where you are. Maybe you're far advanced, but get up out of the chair and do whatever you can safely.
Yeah. I love that you touched on how easy it is to stay focused. So, of course, you've got the board games and other wonderful things you do as far as being a lifelong learner and studying at Duke, et cetera, and taking other classes right now. But I love that you touched on crossword puzzles, because it's as easy as that. Kind of
Yes.
like what you touched on, you might not walk 6 miles, do what's appropriate for you. Crosswords are super easy. They come in the paper or they're online. So I love that you touched on how easy and accessible some of these things are to stay cognitively focused and challenged. So,
Yeah, you can even go to like the Dollar Tree
mhm.
and get word search books.
Yeah,
So it doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to take a lot of time, and it doesn't even have to be physically demanding, but you need to keep your brain active. And
yeah,
sitting down in your recliner in front of the TV and watching TV all day is really so detrimental. It's detrimental to everyone, but it is specifically and especially detrimental to Parkinson's patients or people
right.
living with Parkinson's.
I agree. So the next couple questions are related to our current times as far as isolation and everything that's going on with COVID-19. So to kind of switch gears a little bit, tell us about your workout regimen, what it was prior to COVID-19, and then we'll kind of elaborate on what it is now and how it's been altered.
Okay. So prior to COVID, my husband and I walked
Mhm,
together outside frequently.
mhm,
I also did rock steady boxing at
mhm.
our local wellness center.
Okay.
I did that 3 to 4 times a week. I worked out twice a week with a personal trainer,
Mhm.
and I took ballet once a week.
Okay. Wow, you're a good diverse of activity. Very good. That's wonderful. So now my follow-up question is, how has it changed during this time of isolation and having to be home and quarantine?
Yeah. I think the thing, well, we're still walking when it's not raining or too
Right.
cold, so that hasn't changed. And I'm blessed to have had, I have a gym, pretty full gym
Mhm.
downstairs, so I can still work out. I'm doing virtual workouts with my personal trainer
Oh, wonderful.
because that keeps him from coming into the house, and yet he can still instruct me and make sure that I'm doing things correctly and safely. So I'm still
Mhm.
doing that. I'm not doing ballet.
Okay.
I'm waiting until that opens back up, and so I'm not doing that. I think the thing that has changed most for me is that I was very active. I was speaking across the state
Mhm.
of Virginia as I
Mhm.
prepared for the Mrs. Virginia pageant with my
Mhm.
platform being Parkinson's awareness. And I was pretty busy and active in that regard, in addition to all my activities of exercise.
Mhm.
So for me, the thing that has changed most is that I'm more sedentary. Even though I work out, I'm
Right.
far more sedentary than I was. I'm sitting and reading more
Mhm.
instead of up and down. Even if you're not speaking across the state of Virginia, you likely run to the grocery store or run to,
Mhm.
one of your favorite stores like Target or Walmart or whatever that is. And
Mhm.
so that has really been limited. And even I don't even go into the grocery stores. My husband goes in and takes care of all that so that I don't have that exposure.
Mhm.
So the exercise itself has not changed, but the activity level
Mhm.
of being up and out has.
Mhm. Okay. And the next question will be for both of you. Teresa, I'll start with you, and then Stan, you can answer the same question. What's been the hardest part about being quarantined while living with Parkinson's disease? And Stan, you can kind of say what you believe has been the hardest part for Teresa. Go ahead.
For me, it's the freedom.
Mm-hmm.
We've been married 37 years and we get along. We're just best friends. And like I said, I'm blessed that I have an exercise. I have a gym, pretty full gym downstairs. And I have everything that I need. So blessed. But that lack of freedom to be able to come and go
Mm-hmm.
has been difficult. And thank goodness he's home. He's working from home. So I have that human connection.
Yeah.
But the lack of other types of human connection, even we weren't able to, celebrate with our son on his birthday or with Easter, and they're close. They only
Sure.
live about an hour and 15 minutes away.
Mm-hmm.
And our daughter lives about 5 or 6 hours away. So that lack of human connection outside of your home,
Yeah.
that's what's been most difficult for me.
Yeah,
Sure.
that seems to be that for me as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because she was always on the go, always
Mm-hmm.
doing something,
Mm-hmm.
whether that be going to exercise class or going to speak somewhere or, just going to the store. And like she says, she misses just going to the store and
Yeah.
just picking stuff up and looking.
Yeah.
So I think that was the biggest thing.
It's a different ballgame when another person who isn't usually doing the grocery shopping is now doing the grocery shopping, right?
Well, in our house, he's the chef. and he does the grocery shopping, but we've always done everything together.
Oh, wonderful.
So,
Wonderful.
I still ride to the
And
grocery
now
store. I
he's
just sit out in the car.
Yeah, that's wonderful though. I love
So,
that you touched on that. You found ways to adapt, right? And make it work the best you can. So
right.
I love that you touched on that. At least you're getting out, seeing
Oh,
different
yeah.
sights as the car is moving. So I think that's so helpful for your just your well-being.
Well, and the other day I made some cupcakes, I think it was, and made too many, and we weren't going to eat all of them. And so, I wrapped them up in a pretty wrapper, and I took them to several of my neighbors, and I set them on the front door in a little baggie and knocked on their door, and then stepped back about, 8 or 10 feet,
Mm-hmm.
had a very brief conversation, and then went back home. So there's ways, that you can try to lessen that isolation.
Right.
You have to be creative.
Right. And we certainly believe that too. I think most folks are familiar with the Parkinson's Activity League that Power Over Parkinson's does. And while the movement, the bowling, the golf swinging, some of the other activities we've done are so important, the socialization is just as important. So I know folks are missing that piece in terms of talking to folks, people
Yeah.
with Parkinson's, people without Parkinson's, just
Right.
missing talking to folks and seeing familiar faces. So we all say soon enough, right? Soon enough, we'll be back to a normal or a new normal.
Yes.
Teresa, tell me one thing you've done to just simply remain positive through this.
A lot of work that started even before I was diagnosed, I had really began to tap into gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
And so it really changes the chemistry in your brain. There's a lot of research and a lot of data around that.
Yeah.
And so, journaling each day or sitting down in the mornings for you do your Bible study or whatever it is, to really think about what am I grateful for today or yesterday that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And that changes the way that you look at things. People that seem to always either be happy or they always have good things happen to them. And sometimes it's just that they're looking for those good things, and we're letting those things that maybe are really probably more of a nuisance than anything else, just letting those drift on by.
Mm-hmm.
And then grabbing onto the things that are positive. So gratitude, or an attitude of gratitude,
Mm-hmm.
I think has been very helpful for me.
Mm-hmm. Would you say gratitude is tied to overall mindfulness and that movement?
It is. It's tied to mindfulness,
Mm-hmm.
and it's actually tied to happiness.
Yeah.
Because what we think is going to make us happy does not necessarily make us happy.
Mm-hmm.
And what we don't realize will make us happy, sometimes we don't focus on. So it's really important as to what how we think
Mm-hmm.
drives how we feel.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Now, my next question is taking us to a different universe where you have a magic wand and you can wave it and eliminate one Parkinson symptom. So if you had a magic wand and you could wave it, which Parkinson symptom would you want it to eliminate?
Probably the slowness and the fine motor skills. So for me, I don't really have a significant tremor, but I do really struggle with fine motor skills.
Okay.
So, buttoning stuff up or putting change in your wallet after someone's giving you change, anything that takes fine motor skills, I'm slow at it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that I can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that I'm slow at it.
Mm-hmm.
Or slower than I was. So I think for me, that would probably be the one thing that I would want to go first.
And how do you, if I can elaborate on that, how do you manage that? Is it simply just allotting yourself a little bit more time to get prepared in the morning? How do you mitigate that, the fine motor skill challenge?
Yeah, it doesn't impact me to that extent.
Okay.
It doesn't impact me to, getting dressed or getting out the door or anything like that. I can tie my shoes. I can do all those things. It's just that I'm not as quick at it. And I fumble a little bit.
Sure.
And so it really has not impacted me in a big way, not yet anyway.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. Now, would you say, what would you say you've experienced as a silver lining as a result of having Parkinson's disease? So what would be the silver lining?
probably the time and the space to really gain perspective on what's important and what my priorities were. Family has always been really important to us. You could tell that by I get emotional when I talk about my family. But probably the time to be introspective of what's important. 4 years, my husband and I had talked about me leaving corporate America, leaving that, stressful situation and opening up my own business. And I don't know if we would have ever really done it if this hadn't come along. So certainly that's been a silver lining.
Yep.
The ability to slow down and appreciate things that are so precious to us in our lives and in our families. The ability to be home more and to be present more. Right. I get to choose who I want to work with now, and I get to choose how many hours I'm going to work, and I don't have to worry that at 6 o'clock when I'm trying to get out of my office that someone comes in and says, hey, I need this by 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, which, means I may have to stay over another 3 hours or go home and have dinner and go back or work from home or whatever. So that silver lining of opening my own business and really taking more control and accepting more control over how I want my life to look.
Which seems so circular in terms of you don't have a lot of control with Parkinson's, but you found areas that you can now control in your life and find your own success and how you want to spend your time. So you've gained control in areas that you can. So I think that's great in terms of how circular it can be. Stan, I was going to ask you if you wanted to identify a silver lining as a result of Teresa's diagnosis with Parkinson's disease.
Just her being home and not working so much, and because it was really the job that she had was really taxing on her, and just being able to relax more, and I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, good. Teresa, if it's okay, I'd like to circle back around to, you touched on your Parkinson's Pals program. So I hope you can maybe spend a few minutes just sharing with those who are listening a little bit about that program that you've established.
Sure. That actually happened pretty organically. The first time I went to the physician, there was so little information, and he wanted to give me some medication, and he's talking about medication that changes the chemistry of the brain. And, it changes our dopamine levels, and I didn't understand, and I didn't even understand how he had come to this diagnosis. And then I had the second time when I was confirmed, I actually had the same experience. Now, when I moved on to my movement disorder specialist, that was totally different. There was a lot of education there, but that was months and months later. And so when I began to speak with other people that had Parkinson's, whether it was through Rocksteady or other venues, what I began to realize pretty quickly was that a lot of people had the same experience. They said, I didn't get any information, and I didn't know who to talk to, and I didn't know what this meant to me and how to manage it. And so I started to think about, how can I make an impact on that? We have to change the narrative of how this happens for people. It's a life-altering, very scary diagnosis in the beginning. And so with my health, I've been in the healthcare field for 35 years, and with my health and wellness coaching, thought, what is it that I can do that might help people? So I just formed and began this initiative that allow people to contact me and just talk through and help them gain insight on how they can have a new normal and they can have a quality life living with Parkinson's. Talk about some resources and really just encourage people and give them hope that it's going to be okay. When I was first diagnosed, even to go to like some networking events that I had stopped wearing heels. I would hang on to furniture because my balance was not great. And now, I'm going to be competing in Mrs. Virginia in 5-inch heels in July if COVID lets us. And so to be able to encourage people that you're going to be okay, it is different. It's not to minimize it. It's a challenging diagnosis, but what we have the choices on is how we react to it and how we decide we want to live our life with with this diagnosis. So that's kind of how it kind of all organically rolled out.
Yeah.
And I've had a number of people contact me, and I do not dispense any type of medical advice when people want to start talking about medication. I'm more than happy to share what my regimen is, but I'm also very clear that they need to talk to their physician and their pharmacist, because my regimen may not be the same or even appropriate for someone else's regimen.
Right.
And like you said, Parkinson's is a snowflake kind of disease where nobody has the same imprint. Everyone has a different trajectory and everyone has a different journey. But back to the Parkinson's Pathway Pal, it really was organically out of what I felt was a gap in our care.
Right.
And shortly after I started this, I was reading on the Parkinson's Foundation website, and they did a survey where close to 50% of the people responded, or of the people that responded, 50% said they did not get any education or information on how to manage their disease. And so there is a gap there, and I think there are people that are trying to fill that, and I'm just trying to do my part. And so it's offered, that service is offered at no cost to anyone that needs to talk that's newly diagnosed, just understanding they will not get medical advice, but I am there to help encourage them and to provide some hope and to listen and help them gain what their new normal is.
Thank you so much for that synopsis. I think that's fantastic. For those who have heard our founder, Gary Rigliano, speak a little bit about his journey, it was very similar. It just echoes a lot of folks who you've spoken to. You were given your diagnosis and probably asked to be seen again in 6 months. So with little other information, other than, of course, the internet, which is good in some ways and not so good in other ways.
Correct.
So your story resonates, and Parkinson's can certainly rally around your service. And as I've told you off of our video, we'd love to provide our listeners that resource. So we hope our listeners will visit our website for upcoming information about your Parkinson's Pals program. I think just having that person to talk to and help navigate the situation would be so helpful. So thank you for sharing that synopsis.
Sure.
Lastly, is if there's anything else you or Stan wanted to add, other than that, I would like to thank you, but I'll give you another couple minutes if there's anything else you wanted to add.
Anything you'd like to add?
No.
I'd just first like to thank you for the opportunity to share and the opportunity to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And, I just want people to know that have this diagnosis that it is challenging, but there really is so much support out there. You just have to know where to look for it. And your organization is certainly a great one to start with. And I think when we partner, that we're better in numbers, and when we partner and we share information for people that need it, then people are equipped to make decisions that impact their lives in a positive way. So I'm just grateful to be a part of that, and I thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, well, as I said, for those who are listening, please look for additional information on Teresa's pathway programs and have that support option on our website. We hope to get something up in the next few days. And Stan and Teresa, we can't thank you enough for being our POP profile today.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.